Okay, 6:01. I've had my break. I just need to get started. Welcome. Welcome to today's stream. The music compilation I'm using today has rain sounds in the background, so let me know if that's annoying. I kind of like it, to be honest. Um, well, for one thing, we've had heavy rain for the last 3 days here in Los Angeles, so there's that. I feel kind of appropriate. But also, I've gotten to the point where I really, really, really can't sleep um, without ambient sounds or noises of some kind. You know, a lot of people are like that, I think. And people's box fans, I kind of started off with a box fan. That's entry level. But I was like, well, I can't just have a box fan out all year and run it all night. It's not a lot of energy, but it seems crazy. You know, there must be a better way to do this. I used to have one of those one of the Google Home spin-offs, I suppose, and started to hate it once I realized that it was indeed contributing to, like, through the microphone, was contributing to the search results and ads and things like that. I was like, okay, no, I'm good. I'm good. I swore at it for a while. You know, I just kind of said mean things to the Google Home for a while, but then I just decided to get rid of it. That was a great, when I had that, it was a great way to play ambient sounds, you know, when you're sleeping. Low power. I don't think the power usage on those is very high. So long story short, after looking around, I'm just gonna go ahead, you know, until someone else has something else for us. I'm just gonna go ahead and tell the story. Uh, what I've ended up, I went down a rabbit hole. I started looking down, you know, looking around at all the different white noise machines, which is, you know, white noise is it's a specific type of noise, but it's used as a catch-all term for like background noise. Anyway, there's a lot of those now, and most of them are junk and very much overpriced. Hi, Goose. Goose says, hello, how are you doing? I'm doing all right, Goose. How are you? I'm doing okay. Well, I should say, like, it's definitely, what is today? Wednesday? Well, that's good. At least it's not Tuesday. But it's definitely one of those, it's one of those weeks where I just want the participation award, you know? Like, I just want to be able to say I finished the week. It's not, no concern for the quality of the week. I just, you know, get through it, move on. That's where my head's at currently, for a number of reasons I won't get into. But anyway, um, most white noise machines are junk. In fact, you know what? This could be kind of fun. Look at this. Okay, let's look around. So, first of all, you have these like high-end kind of things for $110. Dome, one of my therapists actually used to have these outside of every single door. It was a shared practice, you know. And I do think the domes actually have like a built-in motor. Like there is a physical spinning motor that creates the sound, I think. But there's a bunch of these, and like as with a ton of, you know, tech adjacent products nowadays, a lot of them have app integration, and you know, the quality, the product could just cease to be functional if the company disappears and the app, you know, is no longer available, and all kinds of stuff. So there are lots of weird roadblocks now. But let's see what this very expensive white noise machine is offering. Okay, so automatically we see an app. This does have a physical fan inside of it, so there's that. But that's as far as I can tell. That is it. It's just making this one particular noise, right? And I feel, especially for more than $100, I was thinking, hey, why does this limitation exist? Digital sound is really not that complicated, and you'll come across other ones, especially on like Amazon, that just have like really low quality sound files built into it, right? Files that are designed to loop, that's fair enough, but like terrible quality, terrible bit rates, and just a set selection of 5, 10, you know, that's what you got. And like, well, enough if you like those, cool. But I'm very specific. I have all kinds of YouTube videos of extremely specific ambient sounds that I like to listen to and rotate through sometimes, such as like Star Trek, TNG, Enterprise D, engine room noise is 12 hours, or rain on tent during thunderstorm. There's one particular video of that kind that I really like. Blizzard on train, but it has to sound like you're inside the train and not outside of the train, which is a mistake that plenty of those videos make. So what I'm saying is, none of these products actually fit the bill, which is disappointing. Because we do kind of live in a time where, whatever product you wanted is there. If you got the money, you can get the thing that you want, or a really cheap version of it, right? So long story short, or shorter, it has been long already. I did my own janky setup where I download the audio from YouTube ambient sleep videos that I want, change it to a file type that's compatible with a recorder I have, a portable like field recorder device. So I pop those in there. That recorder has a built-in speaker, and then it can also run off of bus power, so I can have it plugged in instead of running off of batteries. So I'm having this recorder just play sound. It could play for basically forever. It's always going to have the power to do that, right? So that is now part of my sleep routine, is firing up my janky custom configured white noise machine. Because none of these are actually that good. Very disappointing. Very disappointing that they just, I don't know, no one's cracked it yet for any reasonable amount of money. Make it customizable. Say, hey, micro SD, you can load up whatever sounds you want. It's really not that difficult to figure out how to transfer a sound file from here to here on your computer. I think most of us are capable of doing that at this point. Anyway, that said, this one has, this music compilation has rain sounds on it. Not the best rain sounds I've heard, to be honest. You hear the splashes really close to the mic. It's a bit too much for me. It's a bit too much in the high end. And it also makes me feel like, what am I under an awning? That would be kind of nice. Or is my head down next to a puddle? I don't like the mic placement on these rain sounds in particular. But we're going to go with this compilation for now because I don't have another good one lined up. Anyway, thanks for being here, Goose. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're having a good week so far, or at least a decent week. As usual, I'll look through a little bit of this news stuff here on the internet, and then I will move on to sort of our main topic for the week, which is what? Zom 100. Zom 100. Someone mentioned last week, I think maybe Christian, mentioned, just recommended it. Said, hey, have you checked out this anime Zom 100? There's Christian right now. How are you doing? Good to see you here. Thanks for coming back. So correct me if I'm wrong, Christian, but I think you had mentioned Zom 100. So I did go ahead and give it some of a watch. I think I did 8 or 9 episodes total, so I certainly haven't gone through the whole thing. But I thought that number of episodes was enough to at least have a chat about the show, which we will be doing a little bit later on. But yeah, I'll do run through a couple of the headlines here if anything seems interesting, which, to be honest, there isn't a lot of that this week based on what I've seen so far. So that'll be kind of quick. And yeah, we can just chat about Zom 100, and of course, as always, we can chat about anything at all. There's no I'm really not that strict, about stream topics, things like that. So there we go. That sounds fun. Join us. And there should have been 2 videos that went up this week so far. I haven't double checked to see whether the second video actually went through. But yeah, there should have been the video for Orion in the Dark, and then there should have been a video for the last season of Hilda. Both very short videos, and as usual, just plain reviews. I don't think they tend to do that well, to be honest, on my channel, so I don't know. But yeah, I had to get some more videos out. There's a slightly longer video that I have also been working on already. Sunday was the day. I made both of those videos on Sunday, and I was in the process of a third, and I just couldn't. I just had to have a break. But yeah, there is another video on sort of a more, I don't know, slightly more abstract, a much broader video topic. So I'll see if I can manage to to make that watchable. But anyway, I'm glad to have something up on the channel. It's been so long. It's been so long. I think it was maybe mid to late December that I had the other the last video went up. I'll try to keep this under 30 seconds here. Some of Disney's internal teams made a video for shareholders only, although you can now, view it online, that is instructing them on how to vote for the board members of Disney, because there's an upcoming vote in early April, I think. And it's also specifically telling them to vote for board members that Disney itself approves of. Because, of course, when you're publicly traded, you have a ton of outside voices, right? You have a ton of people with a ton of money saying, we want to decide, we want to influence the decision-making of the company. And that is exactly what's happening right now. So there's this weird coup. It's almost like a party system in terms of trying to promote these different viewpoints within Disney based on these board elections. So it's a very bizarre scenario, at least to someone like me who's not directly involved in any kind of shareholder stock trading, C-suite anything. That's really not my world in the least. So bizarre, but honestly not too much else to talk about there, at least on my end. Spy Family is getting a movie. I guess one initial question I would have, which is an ongoing thing with anime movies in particular for established franchises, is whether or not the events of the movie are supposed to be canon. Because as far as I know, with One Piece, the movies are non-canon. It's just like a separate adventure, an adjacent adventure, another version of something that happened in the show. And I think for Dragon Ball, they are canon, so it varies. But so I'm vaguely curious about that. At the same time, I haven't kept up with season 2 at all of Spy Family. And unfortunately, I do feel like the so much of the buzz is starting to fade, and I don't know whether or not the essence of Spy, I don't know if there's enough there to keep this show going for the long term. I don't know if anyone else feels that way about it. That's just, I don't know. I don't want to be cynical about it, but at the same time, I'm like, is it just that visual? Is it just that concept? Is it just Anya that continues to propel this thing forward? And once that sheen, that initial, the glow, the honeymoon period is gone, are we still going to be crazy about Spy Family, or is it just going to run its course very, very quickly? Yeah, I don't know. But hey, a movie, it's certainly a watershed moment for specifically anime series. I think it takes much, much longer for a Western or like a US-based animated series to earn a movie. How long? Well, SpongeBob movie was relatively quick. That was after season 3? Although those are very long seasons. And then, of course, the Simpsons movie was many years, many years after the premiere. Although I think there were earlier talks about a movie and it just got held up for some reason. Whatever. Anyway, but there you go. Spy Family Code White is releasing. Eventually. Yeah, there you go. I can't watch the trailer on the thing. Real quick. It's weird. I act like it's not commonplace for me to just kind of rant about something in a stream, but unfortunately, I think that's what a lot of the streams have become. Not intentionally, it's just, I don't know, I guess something grinds my gears and I just feel like talking about it. But I say that a lot, like, oh, I wish I could watch this trailer on the stream. I'm gonna get dinged for it. Sometimes that can mean another company trying to get the ad revenue from the stream, but I've stopped putting ads on these streams to begin with. So there's that. But they could still do it. They could put ads on these streams retrospectively. Or it could also mean just an archive version of a stream getting blocked completely. So just people can't watch it, which I think sucks. You know, it's not that these streams are fantastic works of art that need to be preserved, but I like the idea of people being able to watch them if they so choose. And just today, I got an email from YouTube that was like, "Oh, hey, your video is blocked," and I was like, "Okay, what? I just uploaded a couple of videos, but they said they were okay. There was no copyrighted content there. I was good to go." It turns out the video that just got blocked today in certain territories is the archive version of an absolutely ancient stream. It must have been within the first 2 or 3 months of doing streams on the channel at all. It was the stream where I just asked people to bring me bits of online animation for us to watch, right? Stuff that originally popped up on YouTube or animators' independent websites, stuff like that. I just thought it would be fun. Just any kind of independent animation, right? Web animation, whatever. And it was one of the I think it was one of the most enjoyable streams I've probably ever done on the channel, for better or worse. It was a great time, and it was so much fun, and we got so much variety brought to the table, just like completely different styles, completely different time periods, even relative to the short history of web animation. And just today, it popped. Just today, I got that block that was like, "Oh, sorry, yeah, nobody can watch it now. Sorry about that." So there's absolutely no limit. There's no deadline, you know, for a company or a content ID system to tag something in anything that you've uploaded and decide what you can and decide who can even see it. Which is it's a whole topic. Not only have I complained about it before on other streams, I made a whole video about that stuff a long time ago. So there's not much point in me saying any of that here again. But of course, I just continue to be disappointed. I just continue to feel, I don't know, not shortchanged. It's not like it's not like I'm entitled for YouTube to show all of my stuff forever. That doesn't make any sense. But just like, I don't know, you're disappointed at one stage, and then at the next stage, what are you? Like, you don't expect any better, but you still feel bad about it? That's the way I felt about this little scenario. So that was really something. I just, and especially in the middle of a day, like, I've got other stuff going on. I've got other, terrifying emails coming in with other stuff I have to deal with. And then it's like, oh, by the way, that stream that was pretty good, nobody can watch it now. Just in case. Just in case you had forgotten about it, just in case you thought it was up and it was good to go. Oh my gosh. Great. Christian says, I recently saw the show that's on YouTube called Dark Place that's going for that bad, good style mixed with dry wit. Okay, cool. I haven't heard of that one. I'll have to check it out. Christian says, there's an animation recommendation stream. I can see it. Cool. Okay. I mean, if that is the one, I don't remember the title. Yeah, so sorry, I did generalize a little bit, well, much too much earlier when I said nobody can see it. It's blocked in certain territories. So I guess I could, well, it's not exactly good form to open your email in the middle of a stream, but let's take a look. Let's see what they said. Did I delete it? I might have deleted it out of frustration. But yeah, so it's depending on who owns the rights. Yeah, here we go. Watching YouTube animation is what this one was called. Bring some suggestions. So let's see what we got. Video is blocked and can no longer be played on YouTube. That does sound very general to me. So we have Dimensions of Dialogue, 1982. Content owners, Lasso Group. Love them. Impact on video not monetizing. There's 7 claims total, so this is a whole rabbit hole. Pez claimed for the fresh guacamole short. It's also, I love Pez's stuff, and there you go. So yeah, I guess this Dimensions of Dialogue one is the newest, because that's from February 7th. And I'm guessing that was just some weird old, almost lost media animation stuff. Maybe I used it for a background. Maybe it was something that somebody suggested during the stream. But either way, yeah. So it doesn't even tell me there. It doesn't even mention what territory or which or whatever. I don't plan to really do it. You can attempt to fight those, but most of the time it's not worth it, and it's difficult, it's time consuming, and to be honest, I don't quite have the time. So we're probably gonna let it lie for the moment. Are there other headlines? Okay, here, very quickly. I can't believe I forgot to mention this last week, because last week is when I was doing pretty quick, rapid fire sort of reviews of different shows and movies and things. I can't believe I forgot to mention Blue-Eyed Samurai, because I had watched at that point 1 episode of Blue-Eyed Samurai. It was a struggle to make my way through it. I was shocked. I was shocked by how much I hated that show. Hated that episode of that show, and then was immediately discouraged from watching any more of it. I did not like it at all. I really did. And it's not the visuals at all, which is what this article is about. It's about, technical execution of these different projects, which is very interesting. And Blue-Eyed Samurai in particular is a very good-looking show. Don't worry about that. But no, just in terms of storytelling and character and all of that, really just big nose across the board. And I guess the overwhelming thing for me was the I guess I'll just say I don't know. I was thinking about making a video, but I probably won't. There are certain, like, M-rated, let's say. There are adult-oriented projects in video games and movies and streaming and television, whatever, where because they're in that category, because they're technically allowed to do certain things, to have their swears, to show, nudity and all kinds of stuff, or crazy violence, certain projects apparently seem just completely obligated. They're just like, oh, well, we have to put all that stuff in here, or else it's not a thing for grown-ups. We have to show that this is very serious. It's very serious business. And serious art has to have XYZ. It has to have all these things that we can only do in, things with harsher ratings. Which is not true at all, obviously. And it reminded me of, also, hi Toots, how's it going? Welcome back. Also, if you message me on Discord, I haven't seen it yet. I don't go on there a lot, but I'll check, because there's that thing I gotta follow up on. Okay, so do you know the show Party Down? It's okay if you don't know the show Party Down. I went to a reunion thing with a friend of mine a number of years ago. I guess this was pre-pandemic times. And it was at a nice place. It was a historic hotel here in LA. And it was just a cast panel reunion thing, right? So here are the stars of the show. Here are the writers, the creators of the show. And, just Q&A, very casual, just talking about the show, right? Which was neat, But Adam Scott, I like him okay. He was there. Jane Lynch was there. Of course, she's fantastic. And Lizzie Kaplan, of course. But it was very funny because one of the creators, maybe N-Bomb, I'll have to check. I won't. he was like, okay, I think they had to deal with Showtime. I think Showtime was paying for this, right? And because Showtime was premium, because it was mature, it was in the same category as like HBO, they didn't have the restrictions, right? They can do more adult content. So apparently, they dictated to the team creating the show. They said, you have to have X number of topless women per episode. It might have just been one topless woman per episode. I don't quite remember. But either way, they found this just stupid and hilarious. They're like, okay. And so they just shoehorned it in to any given episode. And I feel like you can even tell in certain episodes, like, this doesn't feel natural at all. And that is the same vibe I get from Blue-Eyed Samurai. I absolutely get that feeling of, oh, it has to have certain stuff. It's never going to feel especially warranted or organic to the story. It just has to have this stuff. And it's disappointing to me because there's, these other aspects that I love about the show. Namely how it looks. I guess there's not too much else besides that. I love how the show looks. It's a fantastic looking show. Animation is lovely. And it felt stupid to me. The way it's not even incorporating, but the way that it's, just glomming all this other stuff into the program. It didn't work for me at all. So whether or not I will continue to watch Blue-Eyed Samurai, I don't know. But it continues to be very popular, isn't it? Very well received. Just not with me. Toot says, okay, cool. Gotcha. I'll go there. I don't have I turn off notifications for all that stuff very quickly. Okay. All right. So it's 6:30. I should move on. Are there any other headlines that we want to look at here? I didn't see anything else that was especially interesting, to be honest. Is this a new Pokemon series? Dreaming of Good Times? I'm gonna need the translation for this one. What is this? It's a Chinese animated short film. Okay. So is this part of that PokeTunes thing that they were doing a couple years ago, which I really love. I made a video about that, of course, too. I loved the PokeTunes series. It's kind of the Star Wars Visions. There are any number of other projects where small short form projects, hand them out to different studios that all have completely different styles and different approaches, different story setups, all that stuff. And apparently this is one from a Chinese studio. So there you go. Yeah. Produced for the Chinese New Year. Of course it is. I don't want to be too dismissive, but anything that nods to Chinese culture, it seems, what is it? Monkey King and Chinese New Year is what we get 95% of the time. Fair enough. Okay. I like the art. I don't know. This scraggly line work has been hip for a while now. Or no lines. Do you ever see like no line animation? There are no outlines. It's just the colors and the shapes of each character. It can be really compelling. Ugo says the nude starts to drop off a lot by episode 2. That's great. Yeah, and it's not I don't want to give the impression that like nudity bad, or even sexual content bad. Of course not. Obviously not. And it's certainly not the only thing that was bothering me. It's how the stuff is integrated, how the material is handled, and whether or not it relates in any way whatsoever to the story that's being told. And in my opinion, it wasn't. It really wasn't. And that was just kind of laughable to me. It came off as like amateurish and edgelordy, like someone really young and very young, like 13, trying to prove themselves as like a serious creative. That was just 100% the vibe that I got. I do also hate the lead character and the voice acting for that character. So there are other criticisms. But yeah, I was extremely unimpressed by episode 1. So we'll see. But yeah, I feel compelled to watch a bunch of stuff now. Just I have Netflix. I guess I have Netflix and Crunchyroll, and those are my only streaming options right now. Um, and because Netflix is so expensive, I just want to watch a lot of stuff on Netflix, which is kind of unfortunate because there's a limit to how much good stuff you can find there. You know, as with any streaming service. Um, but yeah, I was not finding a ton of interest there. Ugo says she is trying to sound like a guy. I think it's a bad performance. You know, context is always important. Uh, I think it's a bad performance. It's certainly not the only bad performance in the show. Um, and I think it's a Western production as far as I know. But I am hoping that there are other language versions, other dubs, etc. Um, I just think it's fun to compare. But yeah, no. Yeah, no. Yeah. Anyway. we can move on to Zom 100. Okay. So what is Zom 100 about? Zom 100. Really, only one season. Wow. It's available on Netflix. Apparently, it's also Crunchyroll. That makes sense, and Hulu. So this is all over the place. Very accessible. Uh, Decent ratings on Crunchyroll. Although I feel like Crunchyroll ratings tend to be very high. Maybe that's just me. Okay, July of last year, so still very recent. Of course, it was a manga first, so there's that. But yeah, so the premise is you got a guy. And he thinks he's gotten his dream job, and it turns out it is a terrible job. It's a very bad job. It's just an absolutely miserable work culture, massive amounts of unpaid overtime, and just, you could take off, but because nobody's taking off, you're expected to not take time off. Abusive people within the workplace, all that kind of stuff, and just bad, just a straight up bad job. I think they do a great job of portraying that in the first episode. And then all within the first episode again, so I don't think I'm spoiling too much, but the zombie apocalypse happens, and it's an epiphany. It's the catalyst. It's the excuse for this character to say, "Oh, actually, I hated that job. I never had the guts to step away from it on my own power. So now here I am. I'm sort of being forced to move on, but at the same time, very much taking advantage of the fact that I'm free," which is, a very comical contrast to everybody else who is terrified and like, we just want to survive the day. We liked our old lives much better. He's like, no, my old life was terrible. Let's do this. I'm all in on Zombie World now. And that's her kickoff. That's the hook. That's like the elevator pitch if the elevator ride was about 10 minutes long, right? So here you go. And right off the bat, I'll say that I really like any of the stuff that has to do with his, with the work, work, navigating a career, or even just the moment of realization that you are in a bad job, that it's not as great as it initially seemed, and being unable to actually move on, and step away from it and progress. Those are all fantastic topics, really relevant topics, and I think they were executed incredibly well in that first episode. I will say, despite the fact it is a great hook, the zombie stuff, the zombie turn is a great hook. I was a little bit disappointed that it wasn't a fake out. For a second, I thought it might be kind of an anthology thing, and like different fantastical things are just an illustration of this character's improvement and development through various challenges, similar to a lot of the Simon Rich shows. Like Man-Seeking Woman was pretty good for a while, or Miracle Workers, was that his other one? Fun, different topics, different gimmicks for each episode, kind of fabulous fiction feeling stuff. So the fact that we're stuck with zombies for the duration of the show was a little bit disappointing to me, just because we're done with zombies as a people. You know, I feel like we've gotten plenty of zombies through the years, and I don't find the zombie stuff especially interesting. And it's not that it does turn into a zombie show, and completely. Obviously, it's the basis. It is the world, but they at least so far they've been finding really consistent ways to have fun with it and to put your focus on something else. Zombies are just here to propel the story along most of the time. Let's see. Tude says, are these kinds of anime titles meant to be off-putting, or are they just following conventions in the industry that feel alien to people who don't watch anime, e.g. me? It's a great question. For one, I don't like the title on its own is not, it's not evocative, at least to me. And it's I'm pretty sure it's also the Japanese title, as far as I know, and it has the subtitle Bucket List of the Dead. That's better. Bucket List of the Dead, because what I left off here is that once the guy leaves his terrible job to join the zombie apocalypse, this is his opportunity to hit his bucket list items. He's like, oh, okay, now I can do the stuff that I wanted to do with my life. And that's the loose framework of how he progresses. It gives us stuff to look forward to, and it gives quirky little premises for each individual episode. Zom 100 on its own, not a great title. And I don't know, I'm happy to hear from some input from other people as well here, who are more into anime or something like that, or just watch different anime than I tend to do. I think there are often pretty significant translation issues, for sure, with a lot of anime coming to the West. And I don't mean translation in the sense of one-to-one, right? Like, you could absolutely just do a very direct translation of whatever a Japanese title happens to be. It's, we have that capability as the people. But most of the time, you have completely different titles for different markets, right? This happens with Hollywood movies. This happens with movies produced outside of the US, all kinds of shows. Even video games will have different titles in different areas sometimes. I think there's often a failure to find titles that really work for Western audiences, but I wonder whether or not that's actually an issue in terms of success. You know what I mean? Because at least at this point, I just have a hunch that maybe people who are, really long-term anime fans, almost kind of expect that. I'm just making stuff up now. But what if there is this weird passive expectation now that the title of a new show that you would maybe check out is going to be awkward? That said, you got stuff like Spy Family, very direct. We know, you get more or less what Spy Family is about, based on that title. What else? Like One Piece, honestly, yeah, you need a little bit of story context, but it's totally relevant. It does summarize so much of that show. It works. Yeah, this one doesn't work. Another one I can think of, did I make a video about it or not? I think I made a video about Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai, which is also funny. Like, it's the title's funny and how awkward it is, and there's certainly a chance that it's just, there's an angle of self-awareness to it too. But again, specifically with that one, I like that title. It's a stupid title. It does make sense once you start watching the show. At the same time, I can completely understand how, it's just off-putting. It's just confusing to someone who's not familiar with it, and it's not doing anything to bring more people in. So it's all valid. But yeah, for me, Zom 100 is not quite there. Also, just over-reliance on subtitles can be very annoying, especially in video games too. So I think Bucket List of the Dead I think that's a fine title. I think that's A-okay. It's not a title that looks as great in graphic design. Look at all the fun they're having with Zom 100. You know what I mean? Look at this. especially Japanese. Hugo says, I think it's an issue with how it translates Japanese language, than to have a very long description. No, I mean, there's also a, there is a meta that people have been talking about for a while now, specifically with like JRPGs or even visual novels from Japan, where they absolutely know that they are coming up with stupid titles that are incredibly long. So there are in-jokes at play to a certain extent. But again, you know, that shouldn't necessarily affect whether or not a title works for you. You know what I mean? Whatever your read on it is valid, right? What else should we say about this show? There's probably a lot more. Yeah, there's probably a lot more. We'll see. But let me get caught up first. Toot says, I just finished playing Days Gone. This reminds me of the game. It has huge zombie hordes, and the voice actor for the main character is way too emotive compared to the rest of the cast. Like in bad anime VO. Whether or not our lead character here, did I forget his name already? Did I forget his name already? Tendo? Tendo, I think, is his last name, right? Anyway, whether or not his performance here is out of step with the rest of the cast, I don't think I would say that. It is very heightened. I mean, most voice acting, specifically for like shonen anime, is incredibly over the top. That's just part of the genre at this point, to be honest. Drastically different when you switch to even just like, you know, visual novel games typically have a very different style. Or just other genres of anime sound very different in terms of their performances. So I think it fits to that degree yet again. You know, if you find it off-putting, fair enough, right? Like just a ton of yelling and really, really intense delivery all the time. Yeah, totally valid. I did watch a little bit of the show with the original audio, and then I watched some of it with the English dub voice cast, right? Which I know is sacrilege to plenty of people. I disagree. I think that voice acting for English dubs of anime specifically have had some incredible strides over the last like 20 years. It's a world apart from the stuff we were getting in like the late 90s. So I don't like to disregard dubs right off the bat. I'll tell you what does have a pretty bad English dub is the live action Oscar contender Society of the Snow, which is not Japanese at all. But it wasn't in English. So I did watch it on Netflix with the English dub. It's a bad dub. A lot of live action dubs are indeed bad. Anyway. What else should we say here? Tubes says, oh, don't worry, Tubes. I wasn't worried that you were implying this show has bad VO. I just thought it would be a nice jumping off point. Anyway, Tubes says, it's just that the lead voice actor in Days Gone sounds like he was pranked into believing that he was in a schlocky anime. Oh, no. I've never played Days Gone. I don't think I've ever even touched that one. I could probably get it for free somewhere at this point, right? Yeah, haven't done it, but I totally know what you mean. I have certainly experienced that before in other stuff, other pieces of media. And it's, I don't know. I guess if anything, I would try to look for the comedy in that, you know, just kind of laugh it up. Unless it was something that I really wanted to take seriously, and then I would just be disappointed, basically. But yeah, it's such a specific thing with. I know plenty of animated shows here, and I guess anime too. I think you have most of your cast in the room, right? Like you're recording basically at the same time. And especially if two characters are in a scene with each other, the voice actors need to be playing off of each other directly. And I get worried sometimes with certain video games or even certain shows that was not the approach at all, and that it was all recorded solo, one at a time. Okay, you do your parts. Okay, you read all your lines out of context. And it's not that that's like an unreasonable ask for an actor, even, live action actors, screen actors. You often have to do stuff out of sequence, cutaways, inserts, etc. Like, you're not always going to have the advantage of playing off of another performer directly, right? And it is an advantage. But in situations like that, what you're making Days Gone sound like, I haven't played it. It's yeah, let's go back to off-putting. It can definitely be off-putting. It can also just stand out. At the same time, it doesn't have to be a result of, being cut off from the other performers. It could just be someone is taking a very different direction with their performance, or it could even be bad direction, just this a lack of consistency in how they're, coaxing the performances out of the different members of the cast. Anyway, but yeah, I don't think I would have too much else to say about the voice acting for this particular show, especially the dub. It's pretty standard, I would say, for contemporary English dubs of shonen stuff in particular. There you go. It's certainly not to everyone's taste. What else do we have here? I really don't remember most of the characters' names. This is our main cast, more or less. We have main character guy who's simultaneously trying to find his identity, trying to live life to the fullest in a very positive way, which is an important distinction. But arguably bland, I guess. You have childhood or high school friend he reconnects with eventually, who wants to be a comedian. He had a great life before, but it wasn't the life he actually wanted to live. So this is also an opportunity for him, but in a very different way. We have, should we say Sundala? With bad pronunciation? I guess so. We have kind of a stock character who, doesn't see, not interested in them at all. Even has a meet cute, a classic meet cute with our lead character early on. And you're like, oh, she's very cynical, very focused, very strict upbringing. She's no way is she going to be into this loosey-goosey life that these other guys are living. But no, she joins them up for practical reasons. Oh, she starts to soften up. She starts to open herself up more and more. We learn more about the backstory. Oh, is there a potential romance here? Probably. And then we have... we have... This is a German character who does indeed have a comical German accent in the English dub. We have a German character who dresses as a samurai to kill zombies, and she loves Japan. And it was her dream to go to Japan, and she arrived in Japan like a couple days before the zombie outbreak occurred. Would it be reductive to say that this is a fan service character? A little bit, but it's also what she is, unfortunately. So that was a bit of a, I don't know. It was a bit of a detractor as the show went on. They're gathering up the main cast. Like, okay, here's our ensemble. Here is what the show is going to be. It's all starting to take shape. Once we meet this character, the cynicism did start to kick in just a little bit, just a smidgen. Especially because, like, otherwise, I don't feel like she's added a ton to the dynamic so far. You don't want a character to feel hollow, right? Even at the best of times. But you especially don't want a character to feel hollow when she's, one of 4 lead characters. When she is absolutely a core part of the ensemble, you want everyone to count. You want everyone to have a real impact. And at least so far, again, just about 8 episodes, not getting that from this character. I'm sure we'll get more backstory at some point. And then I guess this is a slight spoiler, but basically where I left off with the show is that we kind of get a foil, a very stark character foil to Tendo, where it's someone who was unhappy with the former normie life, and now that the zombie apocalypse has come around, just wants to do whatever they want, but it's in a much more negative light. They're like, oh, I want to like commit crimes. I want to like terrorize people and just be an awful person, right? Which is not necessarily a bad concept, right? Like I totally see the value of that, because so much of what the show boils down to is like relatively positive encouragement for everybody, seize the day kind of stuff, sort of middle of the road motivational stuff, like, oh, enjoy your life, do the things that you would like to do, take control, have your bucket list, cross things off the list, have realizations about yourself, grow as a person. Like I you can't really be against any of that kind of messaging, even though at times it can feel a little bit basic, at least for a slightly older audience, I think. So I'm not against the messaging. I'm not even really against how it's been executed so far. And this other character foil who we don't see here, I think we'd have to dig kind of deep to even find them, and I don't know their name, which makes it more difficult. Helps. It helps amplify the positivity and the purity of the intended messaging. At the same time, it's an antagonistic element that I'm not super into, and it's another thing we've seen with Dr. Stone. I know that some of you guys have watched Dr. Stone, right? We've at least mentioned it many times before here. Similar thing in Dr. Stone, at least based on what I've seen of that show so far. And by the way, these aren't like criticisms. This is just on the level of discussing my personal preference for especially a long-running show and what I tend to gel with. I don't tend to get too excited about storylines or worlds where it's like, oh, we're starting from scratch, we're burning everything down, the status quo is gone, forget it, we threw it over our shoulders, forget it, it's gone, brand new world, brand new, anything can happen. That's great for me until it then turns into, oh, but ultimately people are terrible and it's going to feel very much like standard regular world, just with a slightly different setting. Do you know what I mean? It's absolutely a pet peeve. It's absolutely something that is not really, it doesn't have a direct bearing on the quality of a show or a movie or whatever. It's just something that starts to put me off personally. It just doesn't quite click with me. So that's where it's starting to go. I haven't followed that storyline up yet. I don't know if it's going to be throughout the entire series or if it's just a little arc over a handful of episodes. But yeah, so that's where this is heading at the moment. That's also where Dr. Stone was heading at the time that I just switched to another show that I stopped watching. So yeah, so that's interesting to me. They're both very recent shows as well, so I don't know if it speaks to some kind of trend in contemporary anime production. I have no idea. I don't know enough to really comment on that. Anyway, but that's where it left off, and it was a bit of a sour taste. And then there's this stuff. There's this element of the show, which, like, based on its genre, we know that it's being made for a vastly male audience overall. You expect certain things, let's say. You expect certain elements to crop up, certain aspects of character design to be present, and they absolutely are here. I don't think they dominate the show overall. They're not, they're not detracting from the experience in a big way, but they do start to bother me for sure. And again, you really just hope that every character is treated 100% as a character. They have importance, they have impact, and they're not just there to, you know, appeal to a certain group of people in a very shallow way. Anyway, but that's, you know, that touches on a much broader topic, especially in contemporary anime. So maybe I'll kind of leave it there for now. So with that said, just some random comments. If anyone has any thoughts they would like to share, please feel free. Go right ahead. I just love this kind of thing, the animation book club, right? We just watch a little bit of something, we get to chat about it after the fact. It's just fun. That's just fun for me. So please, if you have any thoughts on Zom 100, just go for it. Don't be shy. And then at the same time, I mean, I don't plan on ending quite yet. We're not there. But if someone has a suggestion or a recommendation for something else they would like the group to check out, maybe for next week, I would be happy to hear your suggestions. I'm down, as long as it's something that seems mostly appropriate and accessible, then why not, you know? Totally open to suggestions, so go right ahead. Cool. Also, there was a... while we mull over those comments, there was also a live action adaptation already. That's right. We already got the live action version. One Piece, it took decades. Zom 100, it's like that. It's just a few moments. We already have the live action stuff. My gosh. Will I watch it? I guess it depends how much there is of it. Oof. Oof. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so our lead at one point, he decided he kind of wants to be a superhero, so he wears like a shark suit, a shark bite proof suit, so that if the zombies bite him, he's kind of okay, you know. There's a zombie shark. That's a fun idea. I did like that moment in the show. Oh my gosh. Ugo says but it was Japanese live action. They've been having live action stuff from the 90s. Oh yeah, well yeah, of course. Oh yeah, I wasn't under the impression that One Piece live action was the first ever live action adaptation of an anime thing. Absolutely not. Yeah, no, for a very long time. I know for certain Evangelion had one very quickly. I don't even know if the main show had finished by that point, but yeah, it was very quick. It might have been between the ending of Neon Genesis and end of Evangelion that they had their live action adaptation out. Like, it's certainly a thing. I was talking with a friend about this kind of recently, who was just railing on, just like going down the list of all the terrible live action adaptations of anime. There's a lot. Just pretty much all of the biggest ones, it's kind of a guarantee that they're going to have a live action adaptation. And I don't know, I mean, like, obviously we talked about the One Piece live action a long time ago. And I continue to be happy that people have really connected with it, you know, especially people who have no idea, or who previously had no idea what One Piece was. And now they're on board, and it ushered them into the series. Like, that's a positive thing. I think One Piece is great, you know. At the same time, it's pretty rare for me to not just rare for me to connect with a live action adaptation of any animated thing, whether it's anime or Western animation, whatever. But beyond that, it's also really rare that I see the point. It's rare that I feel it is in any way necessary to create a live action adaptation of an animated property. And of course, this is the conversation we've been having around the Disney live action adaptations for a very long time now. How long ago was the Cinderella remake? Because I think that was basically the first one. That was 2015. Okay, so for roughly coming up on 10 years, we've been having this conversation about live action adaptations, and I don't feel like it has progressed in any way. I don't feel like we have a better understanding of what these adaptations are capable of. I just even later this year, right? We're getting Mufasa, which is also technically a live action adaptation, or well, spin-off, I guess. It's just really I'll put it this way. I've yet to hear a good argument for why we need them at all. And at the same time, I have met at least a couple of people who basically only pay attention to one of these projects when there is a live action adaptation. So it's possible that's the answer. There's still tons of people out there who just, baseline refuse to take animation seriously or to even consider looking at it. If that's, if those are the people they're trying to bring in with these kinds of adaptations, all right. I just my personal perspective as a fan of animation, I feel like borderline insulted by the implication that any of these projects need an adaptation of that kind at all. I just don't. I think it just completely misses the point of the source material. I don't think it's a reflection of what makes the original work special or interesting or entertaining. So yeah. Ugo says, I think the live actions are for people who don't want to watch cartoons because I think they think it's for kids due to long-term on the same page. We're on it, Ugo. I'll tell you. Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. And I don't know, like it's it's good for you to point that out, and I do. Unfortunately, that is still the case. At the same time, I think I can forget that a lot. Maybe because, I don't know, whether it's here on the channel or just in real life, I know plenty of people who are, they have no such bias, even if they're not like very adamant animation fans. They're more than, they're benign, right? Is that the right word? They don't mind it at all. And, every once in a while they will watch an animated thing and they'll like it just fine. But yeah, there are indeed plenty of people who just completely disregard it. And there is that association for sure that it's childish. It's inherently something for children. And there's just no getting away from that for them, I guess. So I'm sure there are interesting discussions to be had about how to potentially convince those people that's just not the case, to try to mitigate that bias. But I don't think that live action adaptations, at least in my mind, are the way to do that. Just my take, those are just my thoughts on it. And yeah, whether or not this is good, I don't know. Let's take a quick look. How did this review? I think there's probably not a Rotten. Oh, there is a Rotten Tomatoes for this. We're at 63%. 38% for the audience. Oh. Okay. Well, we got our numbers. What else do we need this for? 5.5 on IMDb. Okay. I do want to see if we can read some of these. Oh, I thought they would give us text. Nope. Okay. How about the show itself? Where does this rank on IMDb? 7.7. All right. I thought his name was Mudslap. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I've just been playing some Pokemon lately. All right. Anyway, so yeah, I tend to find a lot of live action adaptations disappointing. That's not news, you know. It doesn't feel like something that would be worth complaining about in a video. I don't I don't think it's a rare perspective, and I don't think it's something that we need to. It's not something I need to try to offer to the community. I don't think it would do much help. Do much help? Do much good. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, can be good. Again, I don't want to write them all off. And weirdly, we kind of had the reverse, right, with Scott Pilgrim show. Obviously the source material, I get it, you know, graphic novel, but the version that so many people already knew was live action, and now translating it to animation. Yeah, kind of a switcheroo. That's kind of fun in its own right. Still wasn't a show that I really connected with. I don't know. Oh my gosh. Ooh, we have reviewers going after each other. What's going on? On 100. Okay. Grand season finale. Wow. Ugo says, I feel that Puss in Boots: The Last Wish was more mature than half of the MCU movies, but people don't think those are for kids because it's live action. Ooh, hot take. I like it. I like it, Ugo. Well, it's not necessarily a hot take here. I think, you know, I would agree with you. I think plenty of the folks here would agree with that perspective. Well, depending on, I don't know. I think we all have a pretty complicated relationship with the Marvel stuff at this point, right? Just inherently. We're all exposed to it, whether we want to be or not. Last Wish, the story of that particular movie, I don't know. I was kind of split on that too. I don't think it's a bad story. I don't think that in any way the story lived up to the execution of the visuals. I think they're on very different levels, but you know, maybe it's a fool's wish that the storytelling would have been just as creative and original as the visuals. But I do think it's a decent story for sure. And even just the fact that, like, this is a character, you know, Shrek universe Puss in Boots is a character that we will never again delve into his brain and his ego and personality. This was their opportunity to really get in there and explore an incredibly egotistical and kind of stupid character. And I think they did that very well. I can totally see that story connecting with a bunch of people. And of course, I can't specifically speak to the, I don't know, the more recent MCU movies in particular. I just haven't kept up at all. Although I've definitely seen that people are not, people overall are not responding as positively to the more recent installments. But yeah, Ugo, if you have more details on the stories of those MCU movies that you got, oh, maybe you do right now. Ugo says all those movies are PG-13. Most are very superficial, but like it was live action, people did give it more credit. Well, yeah, I can speak to that general point, I guess, of just like perceived legitimacy, right, of a project based on medium, essentially format, maybe we could call it, the difference between live action and animation. But no, I don't disagree. And of course, this, you know, bleeds right into some very long-running conversations that we've all been having about stuff like the Oscars and other big award ceremonies for a very long time now, is just they're very clear patterns, right? Very clear patterns in terms of what is taken seriously, what is seen as like worthwhile work in movies and television, and just in terms of genre, format, whatever. The vast majority of the time, it means dramas, live action dramas, end of story, right? There can be some variation within that category, of course, but that's the stuff. Comedies are basically never going to, win the most prestigious awards. Animated movies will possibly never win the most prestigious awards, and even within the animation category at the Oscars for a long time now, it's just been a hodgepodge because they're slowly realizing, okay, wait, we're breaking these other things down based on genre, sort of, but now over here we just have the restriction of what it looks like or how it was constructed. And animation is not just one thing, so you have all these like very high budget Hollywood family animated films right next to weirdo art house international movies and it just doesn't line up. They're only in the same category on a very superficial level, and that's not enough. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make for I don't know, it doesn't make for coherent awards at all. So certainly, yeah, I have no trouble believing that people would automatically take live action work more seriously, regardless of its actual merits. Tude says, do you think the rise in popularity of anime and the decline of religiosity over the same period of time is a coincidence? Oh my. Are we going for like anime killed God? Actually, that kind of sounds like a great anime concept in a way. No, well, yes, if you're asking whether it's a coincidence. I don't see it as having as those two things as having sort of a strong relationship or even really maybe correlation, I guess, in a vague sense. But no, not really. I don't know, unless we approach it from the angle of like trying to look at the trajectory of specifically like Christian nationalism here in the U.S., right? Which is obviously, it continues to be a massive force politically as well as culturally in the U.S. But in that case, we're not just talking about religious sentiment. We're talking about potential distortions of religious sentiment as relating to also distortions of patriotism, which is when it turns into nationalism, right? Just this unwavering faith in a country, in a national identity, or an imagined national identity. Sorry, this is getting very abstract. And I have a lot to say on that topic, but I don't think it would be... I don't think it would fit the channel. But short answer, no, I don't know. The only potential connection I was seeing there was just like, okay, if you have fewer people, specifically younger people, feeling very nationalistic, if they feel more open to media products from around the world, then sure, that would potentially also open the door for people. Oh, we're checking out stuff from other countries. I don't know how much the exotic element of anime is a factor in terms of how it appeals to Western audiences. Maybe to a certain extent. I think a lot of the appeal, though, remains just in the sense of in the surface level elements, right? And this is something that we maybe chatted about with respect to the Ghibli movies recently, is that, not that this is wrong, but there are tons of people who it is just the aesthetic qualities. It is the surface level qualities of those movies that they connect with the most, and that's fine. They're movies. There's nothing wrong with connecting with the visuals of a movie, or just like, oh, look at that neat flying airship design. That's really cool. I want that on a poster in my room. I think that's a-okay. But at the same time, there's a lot more, right? There's a huge amount of stuff under the surface, specifically with the Ghibli movies, the best ones anyway. And I don't necessarily see that in people, falling over themselves to really get into, I don't know, One Piece, DBZ, Spy Family, Demon Slayer, Demon Hunter, Demon Slayer, yeah, Jujutsu Kaisen, etc., or even like Genshin and stuff like that. Like I don't know. I think the service level qualities are some of the strongest, and you know that could lead us to a whole separate conversation of just like there is a very different visual sensibility. There's a very different visual language in Japan as well as plenty of other countries, right? It is a unique look. It's a unique approach to visuals and animation. Like, of course, there's excitement in that, especially for younger people. Again, if they haven't been exposed to stuff, if they haven't been exposed to animation other than, I don't know, Fox's animation domination time slot on Sundays, it's exciting. It's exciting in a kind of a fleeting sense, but there's also an opportunity there for them to dig in a little bit further. Oh, why does this feel different? Why is this appealing? Why are the kinds of stories being told by a lot of this anime stuff very different from the stories being told by season 82 of Family Guy? There's there is a lot to dig into there. However many people actually get to that point, got no idea. But I also have no problem with people engaging stuff on a really superficial level. If it's just some kind of escapism, if it's just like a very temporary sense of enjoyment they get from watching a piece of entertainment, that's okay. At the same time, I guess we could also ask whether or not religious groups here in the West are opposed to anime. I'm sure we could find something like that if we looked, but I certainly haven't seen. Maybe it's that anime hasn't reached the level of popularity yet where it would trigger the kinds of people who would say those things, or it's just not happening, or it's they just haven't been doing it. Maybe there isn't some kind of crazy opposition to anime from like fundamentalist Christian groups, for example. Anyway, so sorry, it's an interesting question, but I mean specifically, decline in religious faith and religious participation and identification is a trajectory that's centuries long, and even anime itself, like, we could argue that it has been getting steadily more popular, though not at the same rate, since like the 70s, because of course anime has been around since at least the 70s in some form. Much longer, I guess. But anime in the form that we know it today, yeah, I would say, what, early to mid 70s? Anyway, as usual, I'm talking out of turn. I'm really fumbling my way through this. I do think it's an interesting question. Off the top of my head, it doesn't strike me as something that's a direct relationship. I just asked the question for the meme, but I appreciate your thorough answer. Great. Well, fair enough. Yeah, no, I think there's some ingredients there for like a very edgelordy video essay. If someone really wanted to make some people angry, you could try to make that argument. But no, I still find it interesting to kind of wonder about. So yeah, thanks regardless. Ugo says, I remember there was a Catholic priest that did not like Pokemon and did a burning pile, I assume. Yeah. I mean, hey, if you want to get into the Harry Potter stuff too, and how fundamentalist Christian America responded to that, that's a whole yeah, I don't know, it just popular stuff, right? I mean, they're having grown up in a very religious environment, there are so many opportunities specifically for faiths that are solo scriptura, as we would call it, faiths that really focus on scripture specifically, as opposed to continued teachings over time or different translations of the Bible and things like that. There's a lot of fodder. There's a lot, if you control F through the Bible, and you're looking for different ways to put down a thing you don't like, there's a huge amount of fodder to put down anything that's popular, right? Anything that's popular that's not tied directly to religious faith or to what you perceive as the one true God or the true gods, etc. The divine in a general sense. There's so much there. There's so much there, especially Old Testament. So much stuff about, oh, these are the false gods. These are the dummies over there who thought that this golden statue was the cool thing, and that oh, everybody else likes this, I should get into this too. And so I totally understand on that level why why people would of very specific kinds of religious faith would say popular thing bad. Popular thing distracts from what I see as a worthy focus of attention and devotion and time and love and all these things. So it's not like on a practical level it's ridiculous, to do that kind of stuff. The Beatles records breaking, what was it? Lennon said we're more popular than Jesus or bigger than Jesus or whatever, and that spurred also a very negative reaction from fundamentalist America. It happens. And again, talking about rise in popularity of anime, there's no way it's reached that point, right? There's no way it has reached Pokemon levels even, despite the crossover, of course. Despite the overlap there. It's not popular enough. Something is really mainstream when people who aren't into it at all are at least aware of it. When the people far outside of the target audience have at least heard of the thing and form negative opinions very casually. That's when you've hit it big. When something is still relatively niche, something is still, I wouldn't call it a subculture, really, in the contemporary United States, but it is still specialized, or it's relegated to certain age groups, as opposed to all age groups everywhere. I think it's natural that there wouldn't be as many negative reactions. Anyway. But yeah. Dude says, I think the magnitude of the evangelical backlash to Harry Potter overshadowed the backlash to Pokemon. I think so too, historically, right? From our perspective now, I would guess so. But I remember hearing about religious people freaking out about Pokemon multiple times. Interesting. And different periods, I don't know, 5 years apart, 10 years apart. That would be interesting. And of course, that's another element of Pokemon as a franchise, is that it won't die. It is that that initial spike is probably the biggest it'll ever have in terms of, I don't know, news coverage and stuff. But it's just as big as ever. It's making plenty of money continually, regardless of any fluctuations in quality or the specifics of what's being released. But yeah, I don't know. Do you think it's because of the fact that it is centered on weird monster designs? Is that some component? Whereas Harry Potter is ultimately people, people doing magic. I don't know. I could kind of see that. If certain groups thought that somehow the Pokemon craze led to furries. Oh, it's evil. That's terrible stuff. Oh, boy. Can I tell you, for someone who really wasn't that online for most of middle school and high school, which I really wasn't, I was on YouTube. That's all I did. I watched concert videos on YouTube, and maybe I was on Facebook, and that was about it. I wasn't on forums. I wasn't, I wasn't in the know. I did not have any appendage on the pulse. But regardless, I remember finding out about furries probably relatively quickly. If I was more online, if I was really into early Tumblr, I probably would have found out when it was still very much a subculture, when it was still very niche and it wasn't widely known. But no, I wasn't that person. And so just through our regular newspaper, because we got the daily newspaper for a while, which I really liked. I read the comics. That was kind of it. Uh, but I grew up in Pittsburgh. Not from Pittsburgh, but most of my childhood was in the Pittsburgh area anyway. And maybe even still, but for many years, the Pittsburgh Convention Center, which was still newly constructed at the time, was the hub. That was the site of the biggest furry convention for years. And again, might still be to this day. I'd have to check. And so we heard about furries relatively soon. And again, I wasn't getting it through the online perspective. I wasn't hearing about it from furries. I was hearing about it from like very confused adults who were just like, what? Even the descriptions of that stuff were very bad. I think they basically summarized furries as like, it's people who dress up like mascots, and that was it. There was no elaboration. There was no attempt to like explain any sort of motivations for it. They were just, it's people who dress up like animals and they have a parade. That's all we got. these local journalists just flailing about, just like, I just don't. I got to report on this, but I don't know what to say. Dude says my memory isn't great, but I seem to remember it being mostly in the late 90s and early 2000s. Okay, so just for a sustained period of time, there was plenty of complaining. The only details I remember was that Pokemon were compared to demons, and the Game Boy games were seen as corrupting the youth. Well, I mean, fair enough. I do have, I do still have it right on the desk, ready to go. I think this is my brother's. I had silver. So I got red. I got a Game Boy Color and red version for a birthday. And that was the first video game I played, I think. And then I got silver. Oh, sorry, my brother got blue, I got red. My brother got gold, I got silver. My youth is probably corrupted several times, so like, who knows? Maybe there's a causality connection there. Yeah. Never had an SP though. I'm so happy to have this now. What a great device. Not good for ergonomics, but what a great device. So attractive. Holds up so well. What do we got? But I don't know. Pikachu specifically, though, like, what a friendly face. I feel like it would be hard to turn that into, you know, a satanic presence in any honest way. Ugo says, it's banned, it's banned in Israel? Because Majai looks like a swastika and is banned in Saudi Arabia due to it having the 6-sided star for the energy. Oh, okay, so you're saying the energy cards, one of them has a symbol that looks like a certain symbol that was used by a certain, basically, terrorist organization in Germany. Okay. Can't remember. Was the first furries was back in 1905. Well, long story, I have seen quite a few furry documentaries. Trust me. I have a friend who's very adamant on conducting research. At least that's what they call it. Yeah, depending on your definition, furry's been around for a long time. Even by modern definitions, at least since like the 70s or the 80s. So it's not a new thing at all. But again, it's just about when it came into prominence, when it came into public view, right? Specifically in the United States. And yeah, for us, it was the furry convention down at the convention center. And of course, there's a parade. I think they still do a parade. You know, there's a whole thing. But for the longest time, we just didn't really understand it. And those initial impressions can be really strong. So it was honestly, for me, just something I wrote off. It was just something that felt like, okay. Like, I don't know what else. I don't know what else I really need to do here. I don't know how else I should respond to this. Oh my gosh. Can you recommend a furry documentary? I'm really interested for a friend. Of course. Oh, of course. I know. We all got lots of friends, and our friends are very interested in furries. Well, here's the thing. No, actually, I almost spoke out of turn. There's some really bad brony documentaries. And in fact, I think Jenny Nicholson calls one of them out in her fantastic video on the basically the end of brony culture. Um, some really bad brony documentaries, and one in particular was just produced by bronies and was kind of propaganda. Uh, it just didn't do a good job of honestly approaching the topic. It was very much just like a fan project. It felt like. Um, but yeah, as for furry documentaries, I don't know. I think there's a similar span. There's a similar gap in terms of quality. Uh, the fandom was okay. I did see that one at some point. I don't remember where it was streaming, maybe Hulu or something, but oh, Tubi, you can get that one anywhere. I feel like the fandom was okay. And if I had to guess, I think that a decent portion of the community would have generally positive feelings about it. Very low budget, at least to my eyes, relatively low budget. I don't want to be mean, but also earnest. And again, something that I really appreciated was that it actually gave a pretty good history. It actually had a pretty good explanation of where this even came from, and it really did come from like illustration and just grassroots stuff at conventions and things like that. So anyway, but another, what I think is a positive aspect of this doc and of many docs in general, especially docs of a certain community, is that it portrays inner conflict. It it illustrates that people within the community disagree about a lot of stuff, and that is not something you tend to get from poor quality documentaries that are just like, oh, look how great everything is. Like that Brony documentary, for example, it's just, oh, everybody loves us. Don't worry. Oh, you think something bad about us? How dare you? You just don't understand. Let us tell you our very concentrated perspective. This, I think, does a decent job. Oh no, there's disagreement sort of about where it really started. There's definitely disagreements about like the core motivations for even joining the community, why you're doing it, why you continue to do it, or even disagreements about how the community should be presented to outsiders, to normies, who have no idea what this stuff is all about. So I appreciate those elements, and those are, again, typically not things that you would get in a more biased, a more focused or concentrated attempt to talk about a particular subject. So I appreciated that about the fandom. I might have seen Fursonas at some point. I don't think this one doesn't. This is just like a screen grab. An inside look. Wow. So I can't speak to these other ones, unfortunately. But yeah, an okay job for sure of attempting to delve into the topic and give some context. It's fine. Yeah, don't expect incredible infographics and fantastic filmmaking. It's kind of grassroots. It does feel professional, but it's not outstanding visually. But yeah, that one was okay. That one was a-okay. Worth a watch if you're curious. Some more adult subject matter in there too. So if your friend is younger, maybe don't maybe don't recommend that one to them. Yeah, that's what I got. Dude says my old roommate was in one of the more serious brony clans in MechWarrior Online. The two main brony clans were the result of a schism over NSFW content. Wow. Okay. Yeah. And hey, yes, there has certainly been a similar schism in the furry community. Maybe that's a bit of a pattern, a bit of a trend. Interesting though. There you go. That's some insight. Well, hey, maybe you could. Maybe your former roommate has a recommendation for a good brony documentary. I would be interested to hear what they think about that Jenny Nicholson video too. That's like a classic. That's like very genuine internet history stuff. It's really good. Okay, it's 7:35. I should probably wrap up. I don't know. I feel kind of bad. I maybe it's to be expected. I just kind of blurted out a bunch of stuff about Zom 100. Overall, it is a show I like. It's something that I would like to continue watching. Elements that put me off a little bit, but maybe those are just elements, you know, shared across plenty of contemporary anime. So I'm not trying to even pretend to be objective here. It's just my feelings on the show. But yeah, and one season too. I mean, that's doable, right? When you're staring down One Piece in its entirety, it's a different level of intimidation, you know. But one season of the show, and if it does continue, sure, cool. 2-3 seasons, that feels right for this kind of premise. I don't know how long the manga has been running. But yeah, and I don't know. I didn't hear any suggestions for other things that we might check out for next week's stream. This is the time. If you have any sorts of ideas, we are not. I don't think we're going to be watching one of the furry docs for next week. I don't know. I'd kind of like to keep it relevant to animation stuff, but I don't know. Maybe we'll change that later on. What else do we have? Let's see. If things go well, I should have another video completed soon. I don't know. I'm really testing the waters at this point. Like, if I can do a variety of videos in pretty quick succession and gauge the relative interest in each one, I feel like it'll just give some valuable insights into how I should continue here. Certain videos just take much longer. Certain videos just don't seem to get much traction to begin with. And yeah, I don't know. It's important to me to get a sense of whether people actually want this stuff. And if they don't want this stuff, then, you know, we're having a different conversation about how to proceed with things. So we'll see. But yeah, I the last 2 videos were just pretty quick reviews or impressions, and the next one would be something a little bit broader, a little bit more abstract. So yeah, some variety. See how people react, see how people respond, and we'll try to go from there. But yeah. Tude says NSFW content is especially controversial in a fandom for a show where all the main characters are coded as children. I wouldn't even say coded necessarily. I mean, first of all, yes, the comment rings completely true, absolutely. But yeah, no, I think, and again, I'm referencing the Jenny Nicholson video, of course. But as far as I know, certain characters are like, we know their ages, you know, like we know exactly how old they are supposed to be relative to their goofy fantasy world. And like, yeah, if someone proceeds and says, you know what, it's still totally okay for us to do some very uncomfortable fan art with those characters, yeah, that's it's a statement, even if they don't think that it is, you know, like it absolutely is saying something. And yeah, oh my gosh, to call it iffy territory would be understatement. Yeah. So ugh. It's rough out there. Gets rough in some of the fandoms out there. Oh my goodness. Anyway, Zom 100. I'm really glad I got to. I'm really glad I had the motivation, you know, to check it out, and that it is just on Netflix and plenty of other streaming services. So nice and accessible. Yeah, I don't know. I'm tempted to throw another suggestion if no one else has one here. I don't want it to be another anime. We've had more than enough of that. What else do we have? What else do we have lately? Any fun new shows? Do we dare try to continue with Blue-Eyed Samurai? When does the last Airbender show come out? Pretty soon, right? I feel like yes. Okay, here's the deal. The Last Airbender live action series, here we go again with live action adaptations. I think it's connected enough to animation for us to go there. It doesn't release until the 22nd of this month. So maybe we should just hold out for that. Ugo says I like Blue Eye. Okay, cool. Well, how about this? We have plenty of time before Avatar comes around. So sure, let's just say, just try to watch a handful of episodes of Blue Eyed Samurai if you haven't already. Let's just say like 2 or 3 episodes. And then when we talk about it, we'll try not to go into super spoiler territory, but just general impressions about the show, topics. I would like to challenge my initial impressions of the show by watching some more of it. But yeah, I don't think we have to say you have to watch all of it. That might be a bit too much. So let's try for that. And then as with this week, like, we will talk about it next week, but unless we're firing on all cylinders and everybody wants to contribute to that, we'll just, we'll talk about other stuff too. It's very open-ended. Jude says, I'm also interested in your thoughts on the other episodes of Blue Eyed Samurai. Cool. There it is. 2 votes. Ugo says, but there is full frontal nudity in like episode 3. Ugo, I feel like I've given an inaccurate impression of myself. I am not in any way opposed to tons of nudity in an adult animation program. I've seen plenty of it. I'm on board with plenty of it. It can be done well, it can be done poorly. I'm not trying to say that that's a reason for me to hate the show. I felt in that first episode that the combination of violence, the performances, as well as the weird, I don't know, almost afterthought inclusion of sex workers doing their thing was weirdly gratuitous, and it didn't fit with what else was happening in the episode. So I promise I'm not trying to be like a pilgrim here. I'm not against it, and if I ever say that that's like my only problem with the show, that's bad of me to do. Like, it's more complicated than that. So I promise I'm not worried. I'm not worried about that stuff being in the show. It's about how everything's incorporated and how everything works with everything else. That's all. Though it is a fair warning, if there is anyone out there who would like to join us for that discussion, if you are not into that stuff, if that's too mature, too adult, whatever, then avoid it. That's totally fair. Yeah. Ugo says in episode 6, there's more NSFW stuff, but it's not nude. Wow. Now I'm even. Now I'm very curious. What's happening there? My mind is reeling. Yeah, anyway, well, there it is. I'll get going because it's very late now, actually, for me. Yeah, watch a handful of episodes of Blue Eyed Samurai if you haven't already. If you want to rewatch them, cool. I will try to do that as well. And then next Wednesday we can have a chat about it, and hopefully I'll have more insightful things to say about it. But yeah, I'll go ahead and wrap up here. As always, thank you so much for the folks came out to the stream live. Thank you especially to you guys in the chat. The only reason I'm continuing to do this. And yes, thank you to the people watching the archive as well. If you're looking for just more traditional videos, I promise I'm working on more of those. They'll be up as soon as I can manage it. You have a good night as well, Toots. Thank you so much for being here. And then the Discord thing, I'll get back on that as soon as I can. Okay. Is that everything? Thanks to everybody once again. Take it easy. I'll see you later.